Hello, thank you for tuning into Growing Tech Fast, the Org3D podcast. We speak with people from the tech startup space about their experiences, journeys, and things they've learned along the way. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Taylor Matthews, founder at Father Finance. Taylor, it's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Pleasure's all mine, sir.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Taylor. So for the benefit of some of our listeners, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're kind of doing at the moment, what you're up to?
Sure. So I guess my background, super quick, is reformed investment banker and a management consultant. Now I've been in the startup space for probably the last 5 or 6 years or so, mostly focused on FinTech. And recently started a company called Farther Finance, which is a wealth management firm designed to pull the experience that those who have kind of already made it have available to them and make it available to folks who are in the asset accumulation phase of their lives, who are building the great businesses that are going to drive wealth for them and their families tomorrow.
Okay, great. So have you spent the entirety of your career within FinTech?
Not the entirety. It's actually, if you go all the way back, I started in tech, mostly tech M&A, where I was a sell side analyst at an investment bank. Then finance continued at Fidelity, which is a large asset manager here in the States. And from there, I actually went to MIT to do something entrepreneurial. It's kind of always been, my goal to start and run a business of my own and kind of make that dent in the universe. I started a wildly different business in the tech for development space. So it's called S-Mart. We do life improving products for those who are kind of at the bottom of the pyramid, mostly in rural India. So I started that while I was at school and continued to play a role in that company even to today. And then back to the kind of intersection of tech and finance as a management consultant, and then in FinTech at Forasol prior to founding Farther.
Okay, cool. Yeah, a couple of little different bits and pieces there along the way. So that's great. And that brings you obviously to Father Finance, who were founded in which year?
So 2019.
2019.
So we started in April of 2019, and it really was founded with just me and my co-founder Brad. With a PowerPoint deck and a dream, and from there we've kind of built out the technology and really started to build the team at this point.
Cool. And sort of how many employees do you have at the moment?
We're at 12 right now.
12. Okay, great. And yeah, I guess going back to that initial kind of start phase, why did you start the company? What was the dream in 2019?
So it was actually born out of my experience in my last role. Just a little more background. The company I was working at was a venture-funded startup called Forasol. And what they do help build and administer retirement plans, so 401ks primarily, for small and medium-sized companies. And I say that, but it's small as in your local coffee shop down the street. And our largest client was WeWork, so really ran the gamut there. Mm-hmm. My role there, at least over time, it developed kind of into an account manager position, or I guess I ran the team of account managers and those who were kind of advising individuals on their financial choices. So we had about 25,000 employees who participated in retirement plans that my team oversaw. And that gave me this tremendous purview of, what is working and what isn't in the personal finance space. And what I could see was there were great FinTech apps that were being developed kind of for those who are just beginning their savings journeys. So things like Acorns and Stash and Digit more recently, and Betterment and Wealthfront a little bit before that. All really great options as you're kind of starting out. But once you get to the point where you're adding complexity to your life, once you're getting married, you're having kids, you're beginning to to really worry: are you doing the best you can
Hmm.
with the assets that you've accumulated? It's usually at around that point that you start to look out for a financial advisor. And the
Hmm.
way the industry is set up, traditional financial advisors, at least those who are fiduciaries to you, who are obligated to act in your best interest, they're really not interested in talking to you until you have a couple $1 million that they can manage.
Okay.
We thought that was kind of silly, and wanted to take that great experience and the clear demand that we could see for it, and pull it forward and deliver that that high touch sort of service a little bit earlier, using technology as kind of the backbone to do
Yeah.
so.
Okay, sure. And was that also maybe influenced by any of your own personal experiences, looking towards financial advice at that time?
Without a doubt. So, I've always been kind of a geek about personal finance. This is
Hmm.
like one of those things that I, like I remember being on a cruise boat with my parents, like when I was in my teenage years, and while everybody else was reading like some trashy romance novels or whatever, I was I was reading The Intelligent Investor. Like this is so it's kind of like been with me for a while, and I knew all the actions that I was supposed to be taking.
Hmm.
But when you have a career, when you have like, when you're focused on, just showing up and performing being at the top of your game every day, and let alone adding a family onto that and doing all the right things there, it's really hard to, to put that sort of stuff first. And what I found was there were things that I knew I ought to do that I wasn't doing. So I figured there must be it would be great to have kind of a coach, somebody there, to remind me and to actually do all those things. And two, a lot of them were automatable. So that's also a core part of our platform, is to lean on technology when it makes the most sense. So, for instance, we'll sweep money out of bank accounts so that you don't end up with too much cash that isn't invested in the market. We'll cascade that across the types of accounts that you can set up so that you're always getting the most out of your tax advantaged accounts. Things like that, were very much solving pain points that I saw in my own life.
Okay, great. All right. And yeah, I guess since you kind of put that platform out there, what's the kind of general feedback been from users, with that need?
Well, there's definitely a demand for it, and it's we're very lucky. We launched in April of this year,
Okay.
in a soft launch sort of way, which was a little nerve wracking, to be honest. The pandemic had just hit. There was a real worry that especially in the startup space, that cash was going to be very precious for a while, and that everybody was going to kind of buckle down and not do anything. And we saw a little bit of that, but we also saw that, for the people that we were able to reach and to talk to, um, they wanted something like this, especially those that were kind of in that target market for us. Usually, folks who were, in their 30s, early 40s, and again, very career oriented. So we definitely saw a little bit of demand, and it gave us confidence to, to bulk up the team,
Mhm.
add a few additional advisors, and start marketing in still a fairly light way, but at least getting our message out there.
Cool. And yeah, I guess obviously, talking about the bulking out the team side of things, as a startup, how important is it for you guys to kind of get, those early members of the team absolutely right? And how crucial is that to, how you kind of push on as a business?
It's critical. I think one of the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about is one, hiring the right people, and then two, once the right people are on the team, like how do we continue to make this a great place to work for them, in a place
Mhm.
that they're really excited to to pour their hearts into. That's I think without that, you end up in a place where it's really challenging to handle a high growth environment. So we've been very lucky. We have excellent people from the very beginning that are very passionate about the space, passionate about the product that they're building, passionate about helping clients that we're bringing onto the platform, and that translates hopefully into a really good experience for both our employees who can start to see the fruits of their labor, really producing right now, and then also and more importantly, maybe for our clients.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And yeah, I guess just kind of segueing onto that kind of a little bit. Obviously, I watched a commercial that you put online. I think, well, it went onto the website a couple of weeks ago, and I managed to have a look at it. And it's for anyone that's not sort of watched it yet, or hasn't watched it, it's a great. It's really funny. And, it's sort of the message is really clear. Which is what I enjoyed, and obviously, father finance. Obviously, take your money, father. Is that obviously a kind of mission statement that drives the culture within your business? Is that something that you've had from the outset? How important is that mission to what you do today?
Without a doubt, and I think the core of our mission is how do we help our clients go farther with what they have, whatever that means to them. So everybody has dreams, and they'll differ from person to person. But our role is to help kind of usher you towards that dream, to be a steward of your finances along the way, so that you can focus on what really matters to you. And I think the culture kind of sets the tone, or sorry, the commercial sets the tone of that, in that we're not here to kind of speak down to you. This is very much judgment-free financial advice. I think a lot of people have this impression of a fairly staid mahogany office guy in a suit, probably has gray hair when they think of financial advisor. And that's not us. We're a little bit different. We have all of the knowledge that you would expect there, but we're going to talk to you, as a peer, as a colleague, rather than as somebody who's just going to sit down and give you a prescription on what you ought to do,
Mm-hmm.
and not really listen.
Sure. And yeah, I guess just kind of moving on slightly to the growth side of the business. So I think I noticed that you've gone through 2 seed funding rounds so far, and I guess, yeah, just generally speaking, how has that kind of impacted the business? What's that allowed you to do, to kind of move forward?
Well, it was that funding has been absolutely critical for us, and we're so thankful to have really great early investors, really great current investors to help us kind of deliver on this dream. We started with a pre-seed round of funding before we had any real product available to us, and the idea behind that was we need some amount of capital to build the product out, because it's in the finance space. That generally is a little more expensive than just kind of maybe a consumer SaaS startup that you can build and just throw out there. There was when you're dealing with people's money, you want to make sure that everything is absolutely 100% right every time. So that was kind of the core of that pre-seed funding. And then again, once we kind of had the product and early indications that folks were finding value in it, that's where we raised, kind of added a little bit of capital to top us off there, to really prove out that thesis that we have clients or we have a target market that is finding some value here, and understand how we're acquiring our customers to to really hopefully pour on the jet fuel a little bit later.
Yeah, and I guess just on that, for the benefit of some of our listeners as well, I guess, would you have any tips for people potentially going through that phase themselves on how best to handle those kind of scenarios?
Sure. I think the most important advice is probably have a thick skin and listen well. I've been turned down more times than I can count, and but there's usually there is being turned down by very smart people who are often in the space, who have some good insights and have learned from both their own investments and from others, that they're able to see what has worked before and what doesn't. Um, Trying to listen, understand what their points of view, and understand how to address those concerns, I think is really important. For us, I think a big challenge was because we are in the finance space. Demonstrating traction a little bit, without capital is or can be pretty challenging. So that's one of the primary points of feedback that we had to overcome in order to kind of close those initial rounds.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure. I guess with the benefit of hindsight and sort of those initial knockbacks and stuff, would there have been anything that you can think off the top of your head you might have done differently? Given a second chance at it, or
I think again in this space it's quite challenging. To show traction without a product. But one thing that you could do, and that we didn't do a very good job of, was building a wait list before we launched, and that's something that I would have put a whole lot more emphasis on if I were doing this again. I think the benefit there is you're kind of proving that there's interest, that there's demand, without actually having to have the product already completed to in delivering for them. It's something that Robinhood did exceptionally well. It's a little more challenging maybe to do it, with when you're asking folks, to move over their entire life savings. But even so, it's something that I would have put more emphasis on.
okay, great. And yeah, I guess in terms of the future growth plans, obviously, not to kind of talk about COVID obviously too much, and the pandemic and stuff, but I guess how has that affected your roadmap? Obviously this year will have been massive. How much has that kind of affected your roadmap as a business going into next year and beyond?
So the pandemic has been kind of interesting from a business perspective for us, because we've been remote from the beginning. My partner, my co-founder, he's out in New York. I'm here in San Francisco. We had been kind of consolidating in New York as a company before this, but now we're scattered throughout a good number of U.S. states, and what that's allowed us to do, or that remote first culture that we had from the get-go, has really allowed us to adapt to this new environment very quickly, in a way that I think a lot of more traditional wealth managers and those that that are competing for similar sorts of clients have been challenged to do. When your entire business is built around face-to-face meetings, that's that creates a challenge for you in a way that it doesn't for us. So I think we've that has been a little bit of a tailwind for us from that perspective. But looking forward, I think leaning into that environment where remote work, I think, is likely to continue to be something that I guess forward-thinking employers are going to offer their employees. That's going to enable folks to work from other places, more far-flung places that maybe aren't as well served as large cities like San Francisco and New York. And that's where a remote financial advisor is going to be a little bit more powerful.
Okay, great. Yeah, I guess we've got time for sort of one more question. Just sort of more concluding thoughts. I guess generally speaking, what would you say to someone else that might be thinking of starting up their own business during this particular time?
I think if you look at the past examples of folks who have started companies in difficult economic environments, you see a lot of success stories. I think part of the reason for that is that one, it kind of selects for people who are extremely passionate and willing to maybe overlook some indicators that might suggest maybe not that starting at this time. But that's, I think the other side is when you start in a tougher economic environment, you're also, focused on the business, and making sure that you're generating revenue that's going to propel your company forward in the long run, instead of, say, maybe just grabbing users. And that's something that I think is, a little bit different, about founding a company now versus in good times. I think, the other thing that I would say, and this is more from, like, putting on my financial advisor hat, is that, if you are thinking about starting a business, one of the things, make sure that you have, some personal runway, so that you're able to see it through. So I think everybody overestimates what they can do in 1 year and underestimates what they can do in 10. And and making sure that you can bridge that gap between those two ends of the spectrum is going to be, really critical. So, think through everything that you can from a wealth management perspective. It's a lot of the things that you do now, and, both from the capital that you raise, the way that you organize your company, and the elections that you take at the very beginning, they can all have pretty significant, economic repercussions for you in the very long run. We're, of course, happy to talk to you about that.
Great. That's wonderful. Thanks so much for that, Taylor. It's been a really sort of extremely insightful conversation there. I really hope you enjoyed taking part.
Oh, pleasure was all mine. This was a lot of fun.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, I hope everyone listening to us enjoyed that as well. Let us know your thoughts. Obviously, if you've got any questions, send them our way. But yeah, thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.